Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So April was an interesting month on the justice front. It started with a conflicted, compromised, and corrupt Supreme Court justice willing to misuse his position on the court to support and cover up his wife's insurrectionist inclinations. But the month ended with news that the January 6th committee investigating the Capitol attack is about to pull back the curtain on the insurrection, sharing with us in public hearings what the nearly 1,000 witnesses have been saying in behind closed doors depositions. So hold on tight, friends, because it's going to get even bumpier on the justice front. Here is a short recap of the legal stories for the month that was April 2022. So we have a crisis on our hands, a crisis involving deeply unethical conduct by a Supreme Court justice. And the question we have to wrestle with now is, what can be done about that? What should be done about that? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So I'm not sure we've seen a month like March before, a month that started out so weak on the justice front, but finished so strong. Let's do a quick recap of the legal stories for the month that was March 2022. So there's some really interesting new reporting out on what President Biden thinks should be done about former President Donald Trump. And I'd venture to say the vast majority of the American people are with President Biden on this one. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So what did Donald Trump say when he sat down with a presidential historian? Well, he said something that hopefully will be introduced as evidence against him in his future criminal trial. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump's daughter, testified to the J6 committee about what her father did and, more importantly, didn't do, wouldn't do on January 6th. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So let's talk about three breaking legal stories that loosely represent the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. The bad, New York Attorney General asks a New York judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt. And the ugly, a tug of war between two branches of government over the 15 boxes of presidential records that Donald Trump stole and whisked away to Mar-a-Lago. Let's talk about all of that and more, because justice matters. So New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg is now trying to double talk, his way out of his problems. You know what, Mr. District Attorney, how about less talking and more indicting? Because justice matters. So Donald Trump Jr. has distinguished himself as a charter member of his father's conspiracy to overturn the presidential election results. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So after more than 800 witness depositions, after subpoenaing and receiving thousands and thousands of documents, the January 6th committee investigating the insurrection has concluded that Donald Trump committed crimes. No surprise there. But there's some new reporting that indicates the J6 committee is now trying to figure out what its next move should be. Is the time right to refer Donald Trump to the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation and possible prosecution, or not? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So 2 of the 3 co-equal branches of government have concluded Donald Trump committed crimes. Can we make it unanimous? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So DOJ just indicted a high government official for bribery, an illegal quid pro quo. And DOJ is still declining to indict a former high government official for bribery, an illegal quid pro quo. Equal justice? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So Donald Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, is in the news again, and this time for some very personal voter fraud. So I guess that would make today Wednesday in Trumplandia. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So trial just concluded in a case involving insurrectionist Dustin Thompson. His defense in the case was, I was just following Donald Trump's orders. And the jury, with its verdict, concluded that may very well be, but you're still guilty on all counts. Let's talk about the 3 main takeaways of today's guilty verdict in the case of Dustin Thompson, because justice matters. So let's talk about what Representative Jamie Raskin just said about the work of the J6 committee, what he said about the insurrection, what he said about the prospect of criminal referrals to the Department of Justice, and what he said about the upcoming public hearings. And I think there's some reason for optimism, because justice matters. So Donald Trump aide, an all-around swell guy, Stephen Miller, just testified to the J6 committee. In how many ways might he have criminal exposure? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So let's talk about the different kinds of conspiracies available to prosecutors when we're deciding how to best charge a case, and then talk about which one most directly applies to the crimes of Donald Trump and his co-conspirators. Because justice matters. So there's an interesting article published today by Slate, and it's titled, "Why Hasn't Donald Trump Been Indicted Yet? We Have 5 Theories." Let's say we put those 5 theories to the test, because justice matters. So let's talk about 2 related stories involving the crimes of Donald Trump, and then let's try to assess when we can realistically expect some accountability, because justice matters. So Congressman Jamie Raskin just gave us a little bit of a preview, a little bit of a sneak peek of what we can expect at the upcoming public hearings regarding the insurrection. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So, as the Capitol attack investigations being conducted by the House Select Committee and by the Department of Justice begin to work their way up the criminal ladder, they're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Let's talk about Don Jr. and Alex Jones, because justice matters. Oh Lordy, there are tapes. Let's talk about the lies and cowardice of Kevin McCarthy, because justice matters. You know, as bad as Mark Meadows is, there's a new revelation, some new reporting about what Mark Meadows knew in the days before January 6th that makes it pretty clear he is much worse than we thought. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the other insurrectionists among us, and then let's take on who is in the best position to do something about them. Because justice matters. What a banner day for America. A former president of the United States is held in contempt of court, essentially because he has no respect for the judicial system. Where do things go from here? Let's talk about that. Because justice matters. So Congressman Jim Jordan sends a letter to Twitter saying, in substance, "That's a nice social media platform you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it." Let's talk about our gangster government. Because justice matters. Lordy, there are even more tapes, and these recordings have Republican politicians feeding on one another. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. So it really is starting to look like the political tide may be turning against Donald Trump. Can we just have some fun with that this morning? Because justice matters. So there's some new reporting about the status of the New York investigations into Donald Trump. And hold on tight, friends, because the searing injustice of this one is going to leave a mark. But let's talk about it, because justice matters. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show's about to begin on June 9th. Let's talk about the upcoming public hearings regarding the insurrection. Because justice matters.